Welcome to the Mindful Academy podcast with me, Jennifer Askey. I'm a professional certified coach and academic workplace consultant. On this podcast, I talk about doing well personally so that you can perform well professionally. I talk about intentional career planning and about how to get out of your own way and align yourself with success. Thank you for joining me. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. I am Jennifer Askey. I'm the Mindful Academic, and today I'm talking about busy, the culture of busy, feeling overwhelmed, feeling like there is not enough time. So lots of ink has been spilled about busy work and about the culture of busy in academia. Perhaps you are a fan of the slow professor. What I'm going to talk about today is the frustration that you might feel, and probably do feel as an individual in academia, where you spend a day or a week at working at what seems like a really frantic or fast pace. And when you turn and look behind you, go home for the day, look at your week when it's wrapping up, you don't feel like you've made any significant progress on the things that are most important to you. It's about spending a day when you're constantly performing or producing for other people, colleagues, students, supervisees, administrators, right? So you're constantly producing, performing, but you end up feeling a little bit empty at the end of the day. This is a type of busy that I run into a lot in my work with my clients. And so in this episode, I want to offer you a couple ways to think about that and get a handle on it. So some practical things coming up in August, and the link should be on my website at jenniferaskey.com. I am holding a masterclass on August 25th that addresses what I'm going to talk about today in more detail, in more time, sort of offers you a structure to think about prioritizing your work in order to get to better time management. And the second thing is sort of where that masterclass starts, which is, do you know what success for you looks like? And that sounds super simple. Of course, I know what success looks like. I need to get tenure, get promoted, get the next grant, write the next thing, right? Get the next role. That's fine, but the invitation really is to sit down with yourself and say, in the next 2 years, in the next 5 years, right? You don't need to make it until retirement, but in this career stage, how will I know I'm successful? Some of that might be external validation in the form of publications, awards, promotions, reputation. And some of it might be very internal, right? I will feel like I have a handle on my work. I will feel like I am a good advisor. I will feel like teaching, research, and service all get the appropriate amount of attention, and I still have time to live a full life, right? Those might also be part of your vision of success for your career. What I discover, and this probably resonates with you, especially if you are working with or around graduate students, that the way you are trained in graduate school offers you sort of pre-cut, pre-packaged versions of success that a lot of people adopt really uncritically. And they carry those with them, perhaps to their first job, and then their new department, their new institution also offers a pre-packaged version of success that they, again, adopt uncritically. And I'm not saying that all of those prepackaged versions of success are wrong. I'm saying that in order to get a handle on how you should be spending your time, you need to look at what success means for your institution, for your discipline, for your role, and match that with what success looks and feels like for you, right? You're looking for overlaps, you're looking for alignment. And when you have that really concretely held, then doing what I'm going to talk about in this episode becomes a little bit easier. So I'll give you a couple examples from people that I work with, sort of anonymized, aggregated people that I work with. So if you are in a field where grants, writing grants, landing grants is super important, that might be a key strategy to push you closer to your vision of career success, whether that's promotion, whether that's tenure, whether that's a larger lab, more money, right? So if you are in a role where participating in the grant writing machine is a big deal, that is going to be part of your success strategy, right? So what you need to do then, if you say, okay, grants are important, then you need to prioritize in your time management, in your calendar, in your semesterly planning, in what you say yes and no to. You need to prioritize the things that support you getting grants, administering grants, completing grants, doing the work that will help you get the next grant, right? Those things become priorities. Some people find that incredibly fulfilling. Some people go, oh, wow, grant writing is different than doing the science, right? Grant writing is an administrative type job. And what I really love is over here doing the data analysis or doing the bench work, right? So identifying like, okay, this thing that is really important to advance my career, do I love it? Do I not love it? Right? And you can change what you love, you can find new fulfillment. But again, figuring out where that really important type of activity, that really important strategy of getting grants, right? Where's that going to fit into your life? And if you say, okay, writing grants, landing grants, administering grants, getting the next grant, all super important, then think of the types of activity that help you do that. So I just did a little bit of brainstorming before I started to record, and these are the types of things that I came up with. Now, your mileage will vary, but here we go. Free writing, thinking, planning, analyzing data, networking and outreaching with other scholars in the field, relationship building with those people, relationship building with your research office on your campus, conducting the research. Is that individual? Is that collaborative? Identifying the grants that you want to apply for, scheduling your life around those due dates, time to write, time to do the grant management, the project management, the paperwork, the wrap up, the reporting, mentoring the students and postdocs who are part of the grant operation, part of the work on the grant, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Reading, taking notes, all of those things can align perfectly with your priority strategy of landing the right kinds of grants. Right? If you are in a different field, I'm going to turn my page of notes here. So if you're a humanist or a social scientist and your priority strategies for promotion, tenure, the next role, the kind of reputation you want to have, right, involve publishing articles and books, then some of your priority strategies are going to be the same as what I just mentioned. Some might change a little bit, but you're going to need time to think. You're going to need time to do some free writing and journaling. You're going to collect primary sources, collect secondary sources, read those, take notes. Your version of analyzing data, right? Drafting the text, editing and revision, finding the journal to submit to, right? Or the publication venue for a book. Going through that whole process, which I didn't even mention on the grant writing side, because that's what comes out of grants or these publications. So all of those types of activity are work. All of the things I just mentioned are work that you get compensated to do. What busy feels like is when you look at your calendar and you see a bunch of appointments that are interruptions from that work. Right? So if your calendar is take Susie to the dentist at 2:30, faculty meeting at 11, class at 2, right? All of those things, even if they are part of your job, like teaching and attending regular meetings, they are a distraction from the work of pushing your career vision forward. Right? And so when you spend all of your time doing committee meetings, student-focused stuff, planning lessons, grading papers, grading assignments, having the same conversation over and over again with advisees. And I'm not saying this to be negative, because all of those things are important. But all of those things can also expand to fill all of your available time. And if that work, right, if spending detailed time mentoring undergraduate and graduate students, providing fulsome comments on written work, if those strategies align with your vision of career success, then that's fine. What I discover in my work is people do that, but their vision of career success assumes a certain kind of publication rate. And the more they do the giving of themselves to service work, the more they do the giving of themselves to students, the less they have time to do the work that around their research that actually propels their career into sustainable directions, right? Propels them towards promotion and tenure, propels them towards salary raises, right? So if you say something is important, my scholarship is very important to me. It is important to the success of my career, but your calendar doesn't reflect that at all. You will feel very busy and feel like you're not getting anything done all at the same time, right? So, so let's think about the things that don't fit into your priority strategies. So whether you're doing all the things around grant writing and associated publications, or whether you're doing all the things around primary research in the humanities and social sciences and associated publications, right? If those are your priority strategies, what are the things on your calendar that don't align with that? So I mentioned that teaching and serving can expand to fill the available space. I'm going to try to illustrate that with some examples that show up in my clients' lives. So invitations to contribute or serve. Hey, so-and-so, here's a CFP. I'd really like to partner with you on it, right? Additional committee service. Oh, we need a leader for X and you came to mind, right? Meetings that could be emails. You know, we all attend a fair amount of those. Fiddling with the course management software at your institution, right? What needs to be uploaded, what gets submitted there, all of the things that are on the technical end of delivering your pedagogical content. The other thing that doesn't seem to fit is room for serendipity. The interesting thing about these things that don't fit or don't align is that they look like a large chunk of your job, because teaching is, for most people in the academy, a percentage of their job. Something anywhere from 20 to 60% of your job is supposed to be teaching. How to not make that 100, right? Service is going to be a component of your job, 20 to 50%, depending on whether you have an administrative load or not. How to not make that 100, how to know when you've done enough. This is part of the conversation around busy, right? Recently, I had a conversation with a prospective client who found themselves in an administrative role that they didn't ask for, didn't want, and was kind of pointing them in a direction they didn't want to go. And this was just a consult. I was just getting to know this person. And I said, was there at any point an option for you to back out of this and say, no, that's not what I want? And they said, yeah, actually there was, but I didn't take that opportunity for the following reasons. And they listed guilt. They're paying me really well. They offered me this gig. They want me. And for me to turn it down would be curmudgeonly. They've been planning on this for years, even though they didn't tell me. And so if I say no, it throws a wrench in somebody else's system. I'm at a new institution and I really want to be liked, right? And when I dig deeper, I can find something really cool about this job. It wasn't really what I was looking for, but I can find something that I can make it cool, right? If I work really hard, I can make this align with my own vision of success. What else came up? All sorts of things like that, that sort of revolve around people pleasing, sort of revolve around being willing to sacrifice your own agenda for somebody else's needs. And we all have to do a fair amount of that compromising all the time, professionally and personally, right? I'm not suggesting that you be entirely selfish, only do your stuff and to hell with everybody and everything else. That is not what I am suggesting. And I also understand that saying no, erecting those boundaries has institutional variances, like how that gets read at certain institutions. It has gendered implications. It is more difficult for women to say no. It is probably more riskier for women to say no, right? So I'm not painting all of this with one really wide brush in a monochrome. I'm saying if you have identified something that is important to you, and it is important for your career success, you need to figure out how to prioritize it and to keep the other things that are also part of your job in the appropriate sized boxes. And maybe those are time boxes on your calendar, right? So some of this has to do with prioritization and creating for yourself an order of operations that is sustainable, right? So figure out what it is that are your priority strategies right now. So if it has to do with publishing in some way, shape, or form, figure out what that is for this semester. What does publishing look like for this semester? How much room do I have? How much room do I want to have? What are the goals for my research this semester? How many projects can I reasonably move forward? And right, so that's a prioritization exercise in and of itself, because maybe you have 7 projects on the go. Moving all 7 of them forward is going to be more challenging than taking 2 and moving them forward in a more significant way, right? So figure out what it is that you're working on this semester and break it down into chunks, right? So if you are working on writing article and book length stuff, right, there's the chunk of idea generation. There's the chunk of primary research gathering, secondary research gathering, data analysis, whatever that looks like in your field, first draft, revision, sending it to a friendly reader, revising again, submitting it to the publication venue, probably revising it a 3rd time, right? All of those steps are things that need to have room in your calendar, right? So that you can make straightforward progress, even if it is incremental. So if they're important, they need to have room in your calendar. What does that look like? Friday is my research day until somebody says that they need me for this committee, until students can't find another day, until, well, I got to get my hair cut sometime, right? So all of those things are true and real. And yet, how do you carve out time that is important enough to you to hold and keep, right? So that the things that you say are a priority actually look like a priority when you look at your life, when you look at your calendar, when you look at your list of obligations. So the other stuff that isn't part of this primary strategy, say, of research and publication, it can be important. It can be a chunk of your job, but it isn't strategically number 1, right? So what I find so interesting, and I think I've referenced this in a pretty recent podcast, is that teaching, research, and service, the 3 pillars of academic work, in most jobs, they're percentaged out, right? 40, 40, 20. For example, like that might not be your percentages, but that's how it's portioned out. The way people approach their jobs, people who find themselves busy and overwhelmed, they frequently feel like it's 100, 100, 100. All of my energy needs to go to teaching. All of my energy needs to go to research, and all of my energy needs to go to service. So that is a recipe for overwhelm and burnout. So if it's 40, 40, 20 and teaching and research are the same, how do you make your calendar and your prioritization reflect that, right? Do you spend more time in the summer on research while also giving yourself a vacation? Do you carve out a day a week that is for research? What are you doing to make that percentage visible? If research is 80% of your job, is 80% of your time actually spent on research? Right? And how would you know that? Do you go by feel? Do you actually track your time? Do you keep track of where your time goes so that you know, oh, hey, I'm actually kind of overperforming over here, or I'm working beyond requirement here? Is there a way that I can be more efficient and still deliver what I need to deliver, right? I find that a lot of people, especially when it comes to teaching, don't do that. And teaching's great. I'm not saying don't care about your teaching. I'm saying that if teaching is 40% of your job, but you let it take up 80% of your time, something is going to need to give there. And it's either going to be the way you work around teaching, or your research agenda, or your sleep. And you would probably rather it be the way you work around teaching than either your research agenda or sleep. So you need to define the target capacity for this thing, this important thing to you. Research is 40% of my job, okay? Then give it a box. Give it a box to live in, okay? So, okay, over the course of the year, 52 weeks, how many weeks are off, right? There's winter break, there's spring break, maybe you have a fall break. How much of that time is vacation for you, where you shut your computer, walk away, and do other things that fill your soul? How much of that time, like spring break and fall break, are they there for you to catch up, to do work that otherwise gets crowded out of your calendar, right? Look at those sorts of things. During teaching semesters, how many days teaching? Do you have time? You have time. I just saw a text about somebody saying, are you calling me out in your podcast? Perhaps. Um, so where do you have time to actually do that 40% of the work? Give yourself vacations, give yourself time to do the things that are also obligatory, but prioritize the things that you say are a priority, right? And as you do this, hopefully you will be able to identify how often opportunities to serve come your way and contribute to your particular feeling of busy, right? Whether it's being asked to serve on committees or in leadership roles, or being asked to submit to a CFP or to a grant that you haven't already been aiming for, right? How many of those things are showing up that dilute what you can put into these boxes that you're creating for your priority work? So I'm just acting like it's research, I'm not telling you what to do, but for ease, like if your priority is research, where is that going in your calendar? What I found when I was a junior faculty member, what I hear from a lot of my clients, regardless of what stage they are at, full professors do this too, is their 40-hour or 35-hour work week is a joke, of course, but those working hours are taken up with meetings, performing, delivering for other people. And then their research happens in the evenings at home, on the weekends, in the summer. It's off the side of their desk, catch as catch can. This leads to resentment and frustration. So we prioritize and we time box. When it comes to the things that are obligatory, like teaching and service, and that don't align with your success vision, right? The vision of success for your career. Let's think about how to pull them closer to alignment. This is super easy, I think, for service, right? If you have a vision of career success that involves any kind of leadership, intellectual leadership or positional leadership, then there are ways to take service opportunities and say, okay, what am I bringing to the service opportunity, and what is it bringing to me? How am I going to use this committee or this role to workshop, sandbox, experiment with, take the first steps toward where I think I'm eventually headed, right? How does this committee assignment lead to me becoming chair? How does me becoming chair lead to me doing the next thing? So it's taking your vision of success for your career and bringing it back into other realms. So if teaching, maybe your vision of success for your career involves teaching reputation, teaching awards, that's great. Even if it doesn't, even if your vision of success for your career is leadership focused or research focused, how do you make teaching help you serve your success agenda? Right? What do you owe the discipline? What do you owe the curriculum? So that's what you're bringing. What are you getting out of it in terms of the growth of your own priority areas? So I'm inviting you to remain clear about the fact that there is always more you could be doing. And when I say that, I don't want you to think like, oh no, I'm such a disappointment, I could be doing more. Because you could be working 80 hours a week nonstop, and there could still be more that you could possibly do. The invitation is there for you to always do more. Kind of what capitalism is about. It's certainly what the publishing system is about. It's certainly what academia is about, because so many academic institutions, so much academic work actually run on goodness of your heart labor. And when goodness of your heart labor overlaps with, ooh, this is what success looks like for me. Ooh, this is what I find really exciting. Ooh, this really nourishes me. That's great. When goodness of your heart work leads to, I don't have time to do anything that nourishes my soul. I don't have time to do anything that resembles why I got into this work in the first place. Then that goodness of your heart work has gone a step too far. So because nobody is going to walk up to you of a Thursday and say, hey, friend, you've done enough. You can take a semester off from producing and performing. Just coast. Nobody's ever going to tell you that. That means that you need to determine what is enough. How much should you be doing? Right? You could do more, but how much should you be doing? Because busy is sometimes overperforming. Busy is sometimes busy work and not strategically important work. Busy is sometimes opening your email and taking all of those to-dos that are in there that come at you from others. Hey, could you do this? Hey, take a look at that. Hey, here's this thing you asked for 2 months ago. Can you get it back to me tomorrow? Right? Taking all of those to-dos and making them your priority. That's busy. Less busy is, I have a focus. I know what success looks like. And because I have a focus, I'm limiting the number of things I work on at once. I'm aware of how they feed into that vision of success, and I'm going to pursue those with a certain amount of energy and determination until they're done, and I can pick the next focus and work on it. Right? Instead of dispersing your energy across 8,000 different agendas over the course of a day or a week. So that's busy. That is the culture of busy and how you can push against it. Know what you care about. Know what your vision of success is for your career. And then make some consequential choices from that point around what kinds of things are important for you to do, how much time you give them in your calendar, and what else goes in there that makes for a well-rounded job and success. I hope this has given you something. If it has, please let me know. If you think somebody else could benefit from it, please share. And as I mentioned at the outset, I'm going to be spending more time on this in the masterclass in August on time management for busy academics. Not the world's sexiest title, but super important work. So follow me on LinkedIn or look at my website. to be informed about when that's going to happen. So jenniferaskey.com. Thank you again all for being here. I will talk to you again soon. Goodbye. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Mindful Academy podcast. For questions about this episode, suggestions for future episodes, or to request a consultation with me, email me at jennifer@jenniferaskey.com. This episode was recorded in Edmonton, Alberta on Treaty 6 lands. The songs included in the intro and outro for this podcast are Heartache by Silent Partner and Piano Store by Jimmy Fontanez of Media Right Productions, both sourced through the audio library. Thank you so much for listening.